everyone, Jane here and welcome to my Inspired Creations channel. In this video, I would love to share with you guys the three types of kales that I have. I have a red Russian kale, a dwarf blue curled kale, and curly kales. They look so wonderful and also very tasty. Here's one of them. Now this thing has a really strong trunk, and it does look like the top part is so tiny. Now the reason that this thing has such a huge trunk and tiny leaves is because it's recovering from a massive aphids infestation. It was so horrible. I'm very curious. I wanted to see how well the plant can do by leaving it alone, and I am so happy and delighted that it survived. As you can see, it is growing and there's lots of new growth right there, so I'm really excited. Here is my other red Russian kale that I grew from seeds. Now it does look like I have two of them growing in this container, but it's actually one red Russian kale. It just I buried it a little too far up, but it was one trunk and the trunk divided into two branches. But it is looking wonderful, looking really healthy and still growing. So it is really awesome to have these. Now the next one you will be really excited about. This one right here, this bad baby boy right here. Look at that. Look at the size of that leaf compared to my hand. I mean, wow, this is a red Russian kale. It is looking so wonderful and super healthy. New growth on top. This is the trunk of my red Russian kale. Isn't that so cool? It is growing. Now, awesome thing as well is that it grew a side branch, which hopefully eventually will just keep growing and growing, and it's going to be really exciting to have a side red Russian kale growing. Look at the size of this leaf. It is really neat. Almost as big as my collard greens that I have growing. Here's another one. Here's a super big one. Look at that. You have to reach up for you to see it. That's one of my collard greens. So, back to my red Russian kale. I don't use any fertilizers, like I've said on my Facebook. I just add a little bit of compost here, and also I do add compost tea, just pretty much compost soaked in water, and distributed it to all of my garden plants. This one right here is a dwarf blue curled kale. And I have it growing in this container or raised bed. Look at that. See the branch, or the trunk actually, it's still growing. Here's another one right here, which is really wonderful. So I do want to transplant them in hopes that I can make these trunk thick, just like my red Russian kale. This one right here is my curly kale. Can you see the difference? See how this one is so bunched up in its curls, and this one's curl is more on the outside. So it's really cool to have different kind of kale. Now for this one, I have it still growing in this small container right here. It is still really small, so I do want to upgrade it into a much larger container. But I am very happy that these two as well, even though they seem to be really small, they still are surviving. These are over a year old, so it is really nice. So you don't really have to, in a hurry, transplant your vegetables in a much larger container. You can still just have them growing in a small container. But granted, they won't be as big, just like this one right here, which is super huge, because it is in a much larger container. If you do want your veggies to stay alive, they can still survive in a small container. But if you do want them to grow really big and super strong, they do need a much larger container. Here are just my other collard greens. Again, these are the same age as my huge collard greens, but I do have them growing in this little container. Look at this. This little container is still keeping this collard greens alive. Same age as my big one. So if anything happens to my big one, I always have these small ones reserved. Grown from seeds, so it's really wonderful. Well, those are my kales, as always. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye.